All right, guys, in preparation for our CFEs that you're going to need to take pretty soon, I've broken up kind of a review that we have for this whole semester into 4 individual projects. Each project should give you about 2 days to work on them. They involve you watching these videos. They involve you answering some vocabulary questions, and then usually an activity or so, something included. I also have given you a ton of notes, and I'm going to talk to you and kind of reteach some stuff in the video. So it should be enough to kind of give you an overall review of the entire class, again, broken down into 4 sections. And these are 4 things that are going to be for grades. And they're very important that you get them done when they're due. It's very important that these due dates get meet. I really don't have the freedom to push it beyond those days, so it's important to get them done. I will tell you, this video I filmed live for this school year, but the other videos I actually made last school year for when we were in the distance learning. But the information is still good, and that's why I wanted to give it to you. So that's where we are. Today's information really goes back to the stuff we talked about in January, kind of the formation of our country and the formation of our early documents that define who we are as a country. If you remember, from originally we were 13 individual colonies from England. We were a source of raw materials and a market to sell products in. And if you remember something, you might have gotten it in American history the year before called the triangular trade, which was raw materials from these 13 colonies go to Europe. From Europe, they create products that are going to be sold back in the United States, or they go down to Africa and get slaves, and they bring those slaves to work in the fields in the colonies to create the raw materials to send back to England to get the slaves. So that same triangular trade over and over again. That worked for a while, economically speaking. Obviously, culturally, socially, very horrible, but for economics, it did work. But England really tried to control the colonies too much, and the colonies didn't like it. So in 1776, they declared their independence, actually went to war. Our war lasted from 1775 to 1783, the declaration, the War for Independence. We don't need to go through the whole war again. You should have covered it in American history like in 8th grade, and you'll probably get it again when you go to college. So just a real quick summary of it. The British pretty much owned our butts at the beginning of the war. We finally were able to get a victory at Princeton, but that wasn't the turning point of the war. It was our first victory. The turning point of the war came at the Battle of Saratoga, and then finally the war came to an end with in Yorktown in Virginia. It's just some ideas to give you some terminology of what took place in the war. The Treaty of Paris is what officially ended the war, and that was until 1783. We had a version of a government called the Articles of Confederation, which the Articles of Confederation did was basically create like 13 independent countries. Each of those countries worked independently in a confederation. We agreed to come together only for certain issues, but basically, the Articles of Confederation had no meat to it. It had didn't give the government the power to tax, didn't have a military. Each now state got to do whatever they wanted to do. We realized that didn't work, and by 1787, just a few years later, we wanted to tweak the Articles of Confederation was the plan going in, but the reality was we threw the Articles of Confederation out, and we created a new government in the Philadelphia Convention. There were 2 plans that were brought to that convention. Again, not original names. The New Jersey plan and the Virginia plan. Guess what 2 states they came from? The Virginia plan is the plan that won out, and that is the plan that was authored by James Madison. I've talked to you guys about James Madison before. He's my favorite of those founding fathers, those first men in our country. He is the author of the Constitution and 11 of the 27 Bill of Rights or amendments we have to the U.S. Constitution. An amazing little dude, 5'4", little dude who was smart and really thought about stuff that went into effect. There were two pretty important compromises that took place at the Philadelphia Convention. One was called the Threefist Compromise, and what that did was an establishing representation to figure out how many people lived in each state. Southern states wanted slaves to be counted. Northern states did not want slaves to be counted because they were slaves. They weren't free. And so the settlement was every 5 slaves would be counted as 3 people. So it was called the Three-Fifths Compromise. Pretty horrible decision. Again, one of the things that set really minorities back in this country. The foundation of our country was pretty messed up in reference to that. The other compromise was called the Great Compromise, also known as the Connecticut Compromise. Guess what state that came from? And basically what that did was it created a 2-house legislature. Today we have the House of Representatives and the Senate, and those were created with the Connecticut Compromise. The House of Representatives would be, people would be elected for a shorter period of time, but it was based on the population of states. The Senate would have equal representation, so only 2 people from every state. So a state like Florida, we have 27 members from the House and 2 from the Senate, so we have 29 members in Congress. But you go to a state like Montana, they have those same 2 senators, but they only have 1 member of the House, so they only have 3 people. And again, because they have a lot less people that live in Montana or Idaho as compared to Florida, New York, Texas, California, things like that. So the Constitution was written, was sent out to the states to be ratified or approved. That ratification, the agreement was that only 9 of the 13 states would have to agree to it. There was a concern that all 13 states would never agree to it, and so they didn't want that to take place. So 9 of the 13 had to do it. And what we did was we found out we had 2 groups of people. One were called the Federalists, the people for the Constitution. The other were called the Anti Federalists, the people against the Constitution as it was written. The Federalists were backed up by 3 guys. Madison, who we've talked about before, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay were all authors who wrote about the Constitution and why it should be ratified, the good things of the Constitution. The Anti-Federalists were other names you have heard of, but they were people that didn't like the way the Constitution was proposed at that given point. Their proposal was, we need to have some additional guarantees in the Constitution that protects people from those people accused of a crime. I'm sorry, my dog is jumping on me. Get down. Get down. Stop. Go. A little fun for the day to have my dog jumping on us. So the Anti-Federalists, what they did was they argued on behalf of those people accused of the crime, and that's really where the Bill of Rights comes to be. The agreement that they ended up making was Anti-Federalists agreed to approve the Constitution, ratify the Constitution, as long as at that first Congress they would address the concerns of those people accused of a crime. And if you think about it, in those first 10 amendments, we have stuff like the 4th Amendment, no illegal search and seizure. The 5th Amendment, the right to protect yourself from self-incrimination. The 6th Amendment, the right to a speedy trial. The 7th Amendment, trial by jury. 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. There's 5 amendments right there that strictly deal with those people accused of a crime. So it's actually pretty neat that what they talked about came to fruition. It was a reality of something that took place. All right, and that's where we're going to stop for notes for today. We have additional videos to watch, and you're going to have to watch the videos, and you're going to have to write a summary on the videos. So it's important that you take the time to watch all the videos and submit all the work when it's due. In this whole process, if you have any questions about anything, please reach out to me and let me know.